I left my husband, got pregnant by another man, being locked out was my wake-up call. I'm standing outside my own house at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, and my key doesn't work. That's when I knew Marcus actually meant it. Let me back up. 3 months ago, I told my husband of 7 years that I needed space. That I wasn't happy. That I deserved to explore what else was out there before I turned 35 and realized I'd only ever been with one man. He stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. We have 2 kids. Emma is 6. Noah is 4. Marcus works in IT, comes home every night, coaches Noah's t-ball team, never raised his voice at me once in our entire relationship. And I was bored out of my mind. My friends kept posting these Instagram stories from girls' trips and wine nights, talking about their hot girl summers and finding themselves. I'm in a mom group chat where half the women are divorced and the other half are miserable, and somehow the divorced ones seemed happier. They talked about dating apps like it was a game. About feeling desired again. About not being someone's maid and babysitter. I started thinking maybe I'd settled too young. Marcus and I met in college. He was safe. Stable. Kind. We got married at 27 because it seemed like the next logical step. The kids came fast. My body changed. I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror. He still looked at me the same way he always had, but I wanted someone to look at me like I was new. Like I was a mystery they needed to solve. So when Jake from the gym started flirting with me last winter, I didn't shut it down. He was a personal trainer. 28. No kids. Drove a Camaro he definitely couldn't afford. Had tattoos on his forearms and this way of smiling at me like he knew exactly what I was thinking. We started texting. Nothing serious at first. Just jokes. Memes. Then it turned into late-night conversations about how I felt trapped. How I'd never gotten to be wild or reckless. How Marcus was a good man but maybe good wasn't enough. Jake told me I deserved to feel alive. Marcus told me I deserved stability and love. Guess which one I listened to? I moved out in April. Told Marcus I needed a trial separation to figure myself out. He cried. Actually cried. Begged me to go to counseling. I said I needed time alone. That wasn't true. I moved into Jake's apartment the same week. The kids stayed with Marcus during the week and came to my place on weekends, except Jake was always there and it was awkward and Emma kept asking when we were going home. I told myself this was temporary. That I was just exploring. I couldn't tell Marcus. We hadn't slept together since March. I told Jake that night. He went completely silent. Then he said, "What are you gonna do about it?" "Not we. You." I said I didn't know. He said he wasn't ready to be a dad. That this wasn't part of the plan. I said, "What plan? We've been sleeping together for 4 months and you never once asked if I was on birth control." He said that was on me. That I was the married one. That I should have been more responsible. That's when I realized Jake didn't see me as a person. He saw me as a good time. A distraction. A woman dumb enough to blow up her life for him. But I was already pregnant. Already moved out. Already the villain in my own story. I thought about going back to Marcus. Begging. Lying. Saying it was his. But Marcus isn't stupid. And I wasn't that cruel. At least I told myself I wasn't. The truth is I was too scared. Too ashamed. I knew the moment I walked through that door and tried to lie, he'd see right through me. He always could read me better than I could read myself. So I just stayed. I kept seeing Jake even though he started pulling away. Started working late. Stopped texting back as fast. Started saying he needed guy time, needed space, needed to focus on his career. A personal trainer at Planet Fitness talking about his career like he's a surgeon. But I convinced myself he'd come around. That maybe we'd figure it out together. Emma asked me at her last weekend visit why Daddy looks so sad all the time. I told her grown-ups go through hard times sometimes. She said, "Is it because you don't love him anymore?" I didn't answer. She's 6. She already knew. Noah stopped calling me mommy around week 3 of the separation. He started calling me by my first name. Like I was a babysitter. A stranger. I corrected him the first few times but he'd just stare at me with these blank eyes and I realized he was doing it on purpose. 4 years old and he already understood I'd abandoned him. I told myself they'd adjust. That kids are resilient. That I was modeling independence and self-respect. That's what my therapist said when I was still going. When I could still afford one. She asked questions like, "What does freedom mean to you? And have you considered that you might be running from intimacy rather than toward authenticity?" I stopped going after she said that. Paid her $180 to call me out and I wasn't about to keep doing that. The mom group chat went silent after I moved out. Just stopped including me in conversations. I'd see their messages to each other, screenshots they'd post in their stories, and I just wasn't in them anymore. One of them, Melissa, she said, "You didn't choose yourself. You chose your trainer. There's a difference." I blocked her. But she was right. I wasn't some brave woman finding herself. I was a coward running away from a life I built because it felt too quiet. Too predictable. Too safe. And Jake made me feel like I was 22 again. Like I was still someone worth chasing. Worth the risk. Except he wasn't risking anything. I was. By July, Jake stopped pretending. He'd leave the apartment for hours without saying where he was going. I found dating apps on his phone. When I confronted him, he said we never agreed to be exclusive. I said I'm literally pregnant with your child and living in your apartment. He said that was my choice. I should have left then. But where would I go? My mom had already told me not to come crawling back to her. My dad died when I was 19 and she remarried some guy who didn't like me to begin with, so that door was barely cracked. My brother lived 3 states away and hadn't spoken to me since I told him I was leaving Marcus. He loved Marcus. Everyone loved Marcus. I had burned every bridge and Jake's apartment was the only island left. So I stayed. I tried to make it work. Cooked dinners he didn't eat. Wore lingerie he didn't notice. Suggested baby names he ignored. I was showing by then. Not much, but enough that his friends started making comments when they came over. Enough that I felt like a burden in a space that was never really mine. Then one night in late August, Jake didn't come home at all. I called him 16 times. No answer. I stayed up until 4 a.m. sitting on the couch in the dark, feeling this baby move inside me and wondering what the hell I'd done with my life. He walked in at 6 a.m. smelling like perfume. I didn't even yell. I just asked, "Who is she?" He said it didn't matter. I said, "I'm pregnant." He said, "Yeah. And that's your problem. Not mine." I packed my stuff that morning. 2 suitcases and a garbage bag. Everything I owned. I'd left so much behind when I moved out of the house with Marcus. Photo albums. My wedding dress. Kitchen stuff we'd gotten as gifts. I thought I'd go back for it eventually. I never did. I didn't know where to go, so I drove to a Starbucks and sat in the parking lot for 3 hours Googling cheap apartments and extended stay motels. I had $1,200 in my personal account. Marcus had drained our joint account after I left, which was fair, but it meant I was starting from zero. I called my mom. She picked up on the 5th ring. I said, "I need help." She said, "You made your bed." I said, "I'm pregnant and I have no." I said, "Thank you." She hung up. I drove 6 hours to her house in Pennsylvania. She didn't help me unload my car. Just pointed to the basement door and went back to watching TV with her husband. The basement smelled like mildew and old carpet. There was a futon, a space heater, and a bathroom the size of a closet. I unpacked my 2 suitcases and sat on that futon and realized I had officially hit rock bottom. But it got worse. I texted Marcus. Asked if I could see the kids. He didn't respond for 2 days. When he finally did, all he said was, "Through a lawyer." I didn't have money for a lawyer. I Googled free legal aid. Got on a waiting list. 3 months out. I tried going to the house anyway. Just to talk. Just to see my babies. I missed them so much it felt like a physical ache. I hadn't seen Noah in 5 weeks. Emma in 3. I was supposed to have them every other weekend, but Jake didn't want them around and I'd been too chickens to push back. Now I was paying for it. I drove to the house on a Thursday afternoon. I knew Marcus would be at work. I thought maybe I could catch the kids getting off the bus. Talk to them for a minute. Explain that mommy still loves them. My key didn't work. I tried it 4 times. Jiggled the handle. Nothing. Then the door opened. Marcus was standing there. He'd taken the afternoon off apparently. Behind him, I could see Emma's backpack on the floor. Heard Noah laughing at something on TV. I said, "You changed the locks?" He said, "It's not your house anymore." I said, "I still own half of it." He said, "Talk to my lawyer." I asked when I could see the kids. He said, "When you prove you're stable." I said, "I'm their mother." He looked at me. Really looked at me. At my wrinkled shirt. My unwashed hair. The circles under my eyes. He said, "Are you?" That broke something in me. I started crying. Begging. Saying I made a mistake. That I wanted to come home. That I'd do anything. Emma appeared behind him. She looked at me crying on the porch and her face just crumpled. She said, "Daddy, why is she crying?" "Not Mommy." She. Marcus picked her up. Told her to go watch TV with Noah. She looked back at me once before she disappeared down the hall. Marcus stepped outside and closed the door behind him. I reached for his hand. He stepped back like I'd burned him. Don't touch me. Don't call me. Don't come back here. My lawyer will contact you about custody. Until then, stay away from my kids. I said, they're my kids too. He said, then you should have thought about that before you left them. He went inside. The door shut. I stood there staring at it, waiting for him to open it again, waiting for him to change his mind. He didn't. I sat in my car in the driveway for 20 minutes. A neighbor finally came out and asked if everything was okay. I said yes. She didn't look convinced. She stood on her porch watching me until I finally started the car and drove away. I made it 2 blocks before I had to pull over because I couldn't see through the tears. I called Jake. Blocked. I called my mom. Voicemail. I called Melissa from the mom group. Straight to voicemail. She blocked me too. I had no one. I sat in my car outside a Dollar General and wrote this whole thing out in my notes app because I needed to tell someone. Anyone. I needed to say it out loud. I destroyed my life for a man who didn't want me. I abandoned my kids for a fantasy that lasted 4 months. I traded a husband who loved me for a trainer who couldn't even remember my birthday. And now I'm sitting in a basement in Pennsylvania with $900 in my account and a baby on the way that I don't even know if I want. Marcus changed the locks. But I'm the one who walked out the door. The lawyer's office smells like old coffee and leather furniture someone's been sitting in for 30 years. Marcus's attorney is a woman named Diane Porter. She's in her 50s, wearing a gray suit, and she has this way of looking at me like I'm something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. My lawyer is a guy named Tim Cardozo. I found him on a legal aid website. He's 29, just passed the bar last year, and has already apologized to me twice for how this is going to go. Marcus sits across from me. Navy blue sweater. Jeans. He looks good. Healthy. His hair is freshly cut. He's got this calm about him that makes me want to scream. Like he's already moved on. Like I'm just a problem he's solving. He won't look at me. Hasn't looked at me once since I walked in. Diane slides a folder across the table. Thick. At least 40 pages. She says, Mrs. Harper, this is our proposed custody arrangement. I'm not Mrs. Harper anymore. I signed papers 2 months ago. Divorce was final in October. But she's calling me that to twist the knife. To remind me what I gave up. I flip it open. My hands are shaking. Primary physical custody, Marcus Eugene Harper. Legal custody, joint, with final visitation for Rachel and Stokes, supervised visits, every other Saturday, 2 hours, pending completion of court-mandated parenting classes and psychological evaluation. Supervised. Like I'm dangerous. Like I'm going to hurt my own children. I look up at Tim. He won't meet my eyes either. I say, supervised? Are you kidding me? Diane folds her hands on the table. Her nails are painted a deep red. Perfect manicure. She says, given the circumstances of your separation, the abandonment of the marital home, your current living instability, and your ongoing pregnancy by another man, my client believes supervised visitation is in the best interest of the children until you can demonstrate consistent, stable parenting. I say, I didn't abandon them. Marcus finally looks at me. He says, yes. You did. His voice is so quiet. So sure. I try to argue. Try to say I was going through something. That I needed space. That I always intended to come back. Diane cuts me off. She says, Miss Stokes, you moved out of the family home in April. You ceased overnight visits with your children in June. You missed Emma's 6th birthday party, Noah's preschool graduation, and have had 0 contact with either child for the last 8 weeks. That is abandonment by legal definition. I missed Emma's birthday. I knew I did. I sent a card. I thought about going, but Jake said it would be awkward and I didn't want to make a scene. So I didn't go. I sent a card with a $20 Target gift card inside and told myself that was enough. It wasn't enough. Tim finally speaks up. Says we'd like to negotiate the supervision requirement. That I'm willing to do parenting classes. That I'm employed now. Diane raises an eyebrow. Says, employed where? I say, Target. Night stocking. She writes something down. She says, and your current income? I say, $16 an hour. 25 hours a week. She writes that down too. She says, and where are you currently residing? I say, with my mother. She says, in a bedroom or in shared space? I don't want to say it. Tim nudges me under the table. I say, the basement. Diane smiles. Not a nice smile. She says, so you're asking for unsupervised visits with 2 small children while you're pregnant by another man, working part-time at Target, and living in your mother's basement. Does that sum it up? I want to throw something at her. I want to scream. But Tim warned me. He said if I lose my temper in here, it's. She says, my client has maintained a stable, loving environment for both children. They're thriving in school. They're in therapy to process the separation. They're adjusting well. I say, they're in therapy because of me? She says, yes. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Tim tries to negotiate. Tries to get the supervision dropped. Tries to get me more time. Diane doesn't budge. She says we can revisit in 6 months if I complete the parenting classes, maintain stable employment, and pass the psych eval. 6 months. I'll have a newborn by then. We sign the papers. I get every other Saturday. 2 hours. At a family visitation center on the south side. There's a social worker in the room the whole time. I have to pay $50 per visit. I can't afford that. But I sign anyway. Marcus stands up. Shakes Diane's hand. Nods at Tim. He walks past me without a word. I say, Marcus, wait. He stops. Doesn't turn around. The social worker's name is Patricia. She's maybe 60. Gray hair. Kind eyes. She shows me to a room with a couch, a table, and a box of toys that look like they came from a garage sale in 1997. She says, the children should arrive any moment. Remember, keep conversation positive. No discussing the divorce or adult issues. Focus on their interests, school, hobbies. I nod. 5 minutes later, the door opens. Emma walks in first. She's wearing a purple dress I've never seen. Her hair is longer. Someone braided it. Not me. Noah follows. He's taller. Wearing a dinosaur shirt. They both stop when they see me. Patricia says, go ahead, kids. You can say hi to your mom. Emma doesn't move. Noah looks at the floor. I say, hi, babies. Emma says, I'm not a baby. I say, I know. I missed you. She sits on the couch. As far from me as possible. Noah sits next to her. Patricia sits in the corner with a clipboard. I try to talk to them. Ask about school. Emma gives one-word answers. Noah doesn't answer at all. Just plays with a broken truck from the toy box. I ask Emma if she liked the birthday card I sent. She says, I guess. I ask if she got the gift card. She says, Daddy took me to Target. I got a Barbie. Of course Marcus took her. Of course he turned my pathetic gift into a fun outing. Because that's what good parents do. I try to ask Noah about preschool. If he's excited for kindergarten next year. He doesn't look up. Emma says, he doesn't want to talk to you. I say, why not? She says, because you left. Patricia writes something down. I try to explain. Try to say Mommy was going through a hard time. That I made mistakes. That I'm trying to be better. Emma says, Daddy says you chose someone else over us. My throat closes up. I say, that's not. I didn't. But I did. That's exactly what I did. Noah finally looks at me. His little face is so serious. He says, are you coming home? I don't know what to say. Patricia is watching. Emma is watching. I say, I don't think so, buddy. He nods. Goes back to the truck. We sit in silence for 40 minutes. I try to hug them when time's up. Emma tolerates it. Barely. Noah squirms away. Marcus picks them up. He comes inside this time. Thanks, Patricia. Tells the kids to grab their coats. He glances at me. Just once. I mouth, I'm sorry. He looks away. They leave. I sit in my car in the parking lot and sob so hard I can't breathe. I gave birth to Carter on November 14th at 3:47 a.m. 22 hours of labor. No epidural because I waited too long. No one in the room except the nurses. My mom said she had a church thing. She didn't reschedule. They put him on my chest and I felt nothing. He was crying. I was crying. The nurse said, he's beautiful. I thought, I've ruined your life before you even started. They asked what his name was. I said, I don't know. They said I had to decide before discharge. I picked Carter because it was the only name I could think of that didn't remind me of anyone I'd lost. We went home to the basement. He cried all night. I cried with him. My mom came downstairs once. Looked at him. Said, "He looks like his father." I said, "He looks like a baby." She said, "You know what I mean." She left. I tried to breastfeed. It didn't work. Carter wouldn't latch. I couldn't produce enough. I switched to formula. My mom said I was wasting money. I said, "It's not your money." She said, "As long as you're living under my roof, it's all my business." I started my supervised visits again when Carter was 3 weeks old. I had to bring him. Patricia said it was fine. Emma was obsessed with him. Kept asking to hold him. I let her. She was so gentle. So careful. She said, "He's really cute." I said, "Yeah. He is." She said, "What's his name?" I said, "Carter." She said, "Does his daddy see him?" I said, "No." She said, "Why not?" I said, "Because he's not a good person." Noah didn't want anything to do with Carter. Wouldn't even look at him. I asked if he wanted to meet his baby brother. He said, "He's not my brother." That hurt worse than anything Marcus ever said to me. I went back to work when Carter was 6 weeks old. Night shift at Target. My mom watches him. Charges me an extra $100 a month for babysitting. I make $1,600 a month. Rent is $300. Babysitting is $100. Formula and diapers are $200. Child support to Marcus is $450. I have $550 left for everything else. I can't afford a car payment, so I'm driving my mom's old Civic and she takes $50 a month for that. I'm 34 years old and I have $500 a month to my name. I tried to go back to school. Thought maybe I could get a better job. I applied for financial aid. Got denied because of my divorce settlement. Apparently, I made too much money last year when I was still married. I asked Marcus if he'd write a letter explaining that I don't have access to any of that money anymore. He said no. I don't blame him. I saw Marcus at Target once. He was shopping with the kids and a woman I didn't recognize. She was younger than me. Prettier. She was laughing at something Noah said. Emma saw me first. She waved. I waved back. Marcus saw me. Grabbed the cart. Steered them down another aisle. The woman looked back at me. I could tell she knew who I was. I finished my shift and cried in the parking lot. Marcus got engaged 6 months after Carter was born. I found out from Emma during a visit. She said, "Daddy's friend Sarah is really nice and she's gonna be our new mommy." I asked if she was excited. Emma said, "Yeah. She makes really good pancakes." I said, "That's great, baby." Patricia wrote something down. I looked Sarah up later. She's a second-grade teacher. 29. Volunteers at the animal shelter. Runs half marathons. Her Instagram is full of pictures with Marcus and the kids. They look happy. She looks like everything I should have been. I reported one of her photos out of spite. Instagram didn't take it down. I'm 20 pounds heavier than I was before Carter. I can't afford new clothes. I wear the same 3 outfits to work on rotation. My hair is falling out. I haven't had a haircut in 8 months. I look in the mirror and I don't recognize myself. I thought leaving Marcus would make me feel alive. I've never felt more dead. Carter is 10 months old now. He's starting to crawl. He smiles at me sometimes. I love him. But I also resent him. He's a constant reminder of every mistake I made. Emma turned 7 last month. I wasn't invited to the party. I sent a gift. Marcus's mom texted me later and said Emma opened it and said thank you but didn't ask about me. I haven't seen Noah smile in 6 months. I asked Patricia if they talk about me at home. She said she can't share that information. I asked if they miss me. She said the same thing. I think about calling Marcus sometimes. Begging him to let me come back. Not as his wife. Just as their mom. I'd sleep on the couch. I'd do anything. But I know what he'd say. You made your choice. And he'd be right. I lie awake at night in my mom's basement with Carter sleeping next to me and I replay everything. The first text to Jake. The first lie. The first time I chose him over my family. Every single choice was mine. I thought Marcus was boring. I thought I deserved passion. I thought I was missing out. I wasn't missing out. I was throwing away the only thing that ever mattered. Jake is engaged now too. To the yoga instructor. I saw it on Instagram. Big ring. Beach proposal. She said yes. I wonder if he thinks about me. About Carter. About the life he could have had. Probably not. I'm a footnote in his story. He's the whole plot of mine. Marcus changed the locks on a Tuesday in September. But I locked myself out the day I walked away. If you're reading this and you think the grass is greener, let me save you the trouble. It's not. It's dead and brown and full of regrets you'll carry for the rest of your life. I have a son I love, but didn't plan. I have 2 kids who don't look at me the same. I have an ex-husband who's getting remarried to a woman who's better for my kids than I ever was. And I have a futon in a basement, a Target name tag, and the rest of my life to think about what I destroyed. I thought I deserved better than Marcus. Turns out I didn't even deserve him.